guys, welcome back to my channel. This week's video is about 4 mistakes that I've made over the last year. I'm going to be talking to you guys about mistakes that I made with my grip, my arm positioning, my target choice, as well as my overall drawing pattern. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how I changed and why I've changed the way that I position my arms while I'm shooting. So when I first started shooting, I would actually lock out my elbows like this. And I'm hypermobile, so my elbows actually go much further than they're supposed to, and that would actually cause me a lot of pain while I was shooting. Essentially, my joints, my hyperextended joints, were absorbing all of the recoil, and to make matters worse, they weren't really absorbing the recoil very well. I went along for quite a while shooting with my elbows locked out and hyperextended, and I had people tell me that I should change that, but I didn't really know how to change that. They just kind of told me to bend my arms, and then I really felt like I didn't have any control over the firearm, and so I just continued to lock my elbows out, and I just couldn't shoot for very long consecutively because it would hurt my elbows so much. I happened to be just watching a YouTube channel one evening, and the person in the video did an awesome job of explaining how I actually needed to bend my elbows. And keep in mind that this is a technique, it's not the technique, it's not the right thing, it's not something you're supposed to do. It's just what really works for me right now. This technique might change for me a year from now. What I'm just sharing today is the major difference that just this small change has made for me, both in comfort and shootability. So like I said, I started out by hyperextending my elbows and keeping them locked out while I was shooting, and that caused me a lot of pain. So instead, I actually just roll my elbows out like so. So I'm not talking about bending them like this. What I actually do is literally roll my elbows out. What I feel like this does for me is it allows me to really maintain, if not increase, the pressure on the actual grip of the gun. And not only does that make my grip a lot more effective, but it also is a lot more comfortable to shoot this way. I'm able to use my shoulder muscles as well as all of my muscles in my arms instead of locking my joints out and just letting my joints absorb all of that recoil. And moving right along to mistakes that I made with my grip. Something that I want to mention about this portion of the video is that the grip that I started out with is not inherently wrong. It just was wrong for me personally and didn't work for me as a beginner shooter. And the things that I've changed have made a massive difference for me personally. So when I first started shooting, I was actually afraid of the movement of the slide. I actually didn't know what slide bite was. Nobody had ever explained it to me. They just said that you can get slide bite, and I hadn't seen pictures of it. I had no idea what it was, and so I thought that this slide could just bite me anytime I was shooting at any given point, and so I needed to keep my hands as far away as I possibly could from it, and obviously that is not correct. And once I learned that that wasn't correct, I started gripping the gun a lot better because I wasn't scared of it anymore. So for those of you who don't know what slide bite is, it comes from when the slide actually racks back and catches your skin back here. That's partially why this beaver tail is here, is to protect your hand from wanting to go up higher on the gun. So long as your hand is staying below this beaver tail, you are not going to have to deal with slide bite. So because I was afraid of the slide, I wouldn't bring my hand up very high on the beaver tail, which I do now. And the other thing that I would do, which again isn't inherently wrong, but it was wrong partially because of the reason I was doing it, which is I was keeping my thumb down here, which ultimately led me to kind of having an inconsistent place where I was putting my support hand upon drawing from the holster. I was getting like a lower grip on the grip, which was not helping with recoil control. And once I figured out that I didn't need to be afraid of the slide, I was more comfortable with the idea of actually positioning my thumb higher up on the gun and straight. And the thing that that has done for me is it's given me a consistent place to index off of when I'm coming out of the holster. I have a consistent place where I'm putting my hand every single time instead of kind of meeting it wherever my hands kind of would go. The next thing that I did that wasn't really a mistake, but it kind of was only shooting on steel. So something that I want to say is that shooting on steel is super duper fun, and it gives you that immediate feedback when you hit your target. And I think it's an amazing tool for having fun at the range, but also for beginners and for getting them into shooting. But the problem for me was that that's all I wanted to do, and shooting on paper just seemed boring to me until I started doing it more often, and I realized that my bullets weren't going exactly where I was intending for them to go. They were going in the general vicinity, and that's why they were hitting the steel, but I wasn't as accurate as I thought I was initially. So what I learned is that steel is super fun, but it'll lie to you. The last mistake that I made over the last year that I wanted to mention in this video was all of the dramatic, inefficient, unnecessary movement that I was implementing into my drawing pattern. You can see here in some of my old videos that I do a lot of extra movement. I'm moving my shoulder, I'm moving my whole side, I'm pressing out really far, and even leaning my shoulders really far forward and really dipping my head down. It was a ton of extra movement that was not only just making me really inefficient, but taking up time in my drawing pattern. And I want to mention that this is something I'm still very much working on. I do feel like I've made a lot of change and I've progressed a lot in this part of my journey over the last year, but it's still something I'm very much still working on dialing it in and making a lot less movement and being more efficient at. So looking back on this last year, these are the highlights that I feel like I've worked on and made some pretty big changes, some measurable changes on. And it's not unlikely that a year from now, I'll probably have a whole new list of things and videos of me doing something silly right now, and maybe ways that I've improved on them a year from now. The point is that we're all a constant work in progress, and that's a really good thing. It's good for us to be noticing our flaws and hopefully working on improving those things. So I hope that some of these points were helpful to you guys, especially if you're more towards the beginning of your journey. I hope that you were able to maybe take something away, or you saw me doing something that you used to do or that you're doing currently, and maybe you can implement some of the things that I've learned at the range. So thanks for watching today's video. I hope to see you in my next video, and you guys have a great rest of your week.